scouring the internet in search of something to watch, clicking anything on YouTube that even caught the glimpse of my attention, I stumbled on a video of a channel named Bald and Bankrupt, whose real name is Ben Rich. It was a video simply called Visiting Russia's Poorest Town. I immediately got interested, since most travel vloggers usually try to visit and show only the best places instead. Maybe the presentation was not great. Bald and Bankrupt guy really wanted us to know that this was the poorest
town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. You see these guys, they like living in the poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Russia's cheapest town. Russia's poorest town. Poorest town in Russia. 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 Poorest memorial in Russia. Poorest hot chick in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. No matter how poor a town, poorest shop in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia. Poorest town in Russia.
But it was still entertaining enough, and that the fact that he could speak some Russian
Okay, great.
also piqued my interest. And shortly, I began watching his other, more recent videos. Since I am a Ukrainian, I was interested in seeing videos primarily about Eastern Bloc of post-USSR countries because we share a lot of commonalities. I wondered how someone from England would react to cultural differences and quirks that some people that live here may have. I was surprised. Not only Ben felt right at home, he behaved like he owned the place, being loud in public.
Это наш блядь.
Я заебалась, я же маленькая девочка, блядь, тебя.
You gotta film this shit. You gotta film this shit. It's too Russian. It's too Russian.
Answering passerbys with questions.
Можно вопрос про ваш красивый район КТЗ? А что вы думаете про это здание? Раньше было красивее, наверное.
Наверное, работала когда.
Ну да. А что вы кушаете?
Хачапури?
Да? Хорошо. Приятного аппетита. Как вы чувствуете, что вы работаете? Вы сами хорошие. Туалет, наверное, в России. У вас есть мужчина?
У меня?
Да.
Мужчина?
Да.
Есть у меня муж.
Adidas, Dolce & Gabbana. Dolce & Gabbana? Oh, Adidas тоже. She's got Adidas. Где это? Где город? And there's a man going through the bins. Блин. Ну осторожно, нету крысы или что-то?
And generally not minding what people might think of him.
While Johnny is having a pee in the bushes,
His friend went to take a piss in public? Okay. Of course, all those are hallmarks of being a vlogger. But here and there I would notice some strange comments from Ben, like calling regular people gopniks,
you're the biggest gopnik in Kataze. My God. Little future gopniks.
sexist remarks,
They were Indian traffic cops, and they were beautiful. With their neatly pressed, figure-hugging uniforms and blue caps beneath which they wore their hair in immaculate hairdos, I stayed in the city an extra day, for no other reason than to gaze upon them. In fact, I'd often stop to ask needless directions just to see their smiles up close, maybe feel a slight hint of their breath on my skin, and to prove to myself that these angels of the north were in fact real, and not just figments of my imagination.
It looks better. It looks cleaner. I found it. आपको मालूम कहाँ है car wash यहाँ पे? Building ठीक है, कहाँ है petrol station?
Now perhaps you think it was wrong to stalk these innocent damsels of the foothills. But don't judge a man until you have walked in his shoes, or at least ridden on his motorbike.
showing support to dictators,
Белорусочка. Слава Беларусь. Бачка. Что вы думаете про Лукашенко? Мужик. Мужик, согласен, согласен. Лукаш молодец.
or even some weird racially charged jokes.
They say Russian people are racist and black people will get beaten up if they come to Russia, but it's not true. Look, they even have black models. See? Yep. Advertising. Now, if Russia was so racist, they wouldn't have a black dude advertising this white shirt.
What I particularly didn't like is him perpetuating the culture of alcoholism in these countries by offering to buy drinks and get drunk with strangers to keep the content machine going.
Давайте. Давайте.
Я чокнусь с вами, ребята.
Look how many different types of vodka.
In one video, he even encountered an already drunk guy, offered him to buy more alcohol, and then drive with him on a motorcycle while both of them were inebriated.
I've been invited to go picking some cucumbers with my new friend here in London. And he's bought me beer and pork scratchings. What a legend.
Короче, ты шлем одеваешь.
А вы?
Ну я ж трезвый.
Хорошо. Я тоже. Oh, bloody hell. This doesn't bode well. A Soviet motorcycle adventure. Смотри куда! Смотри куда! Sergey! Sergey, куда? Sergey!
I don't think that's safe. After I caught up with the videos, I noticed that Hugh stopped posting for a while. Turns out he caught COVID, most likely due to him disregarding COVID restrictions and catching the virus, or perhaps for some other reasons. Many things didn't sit right with me about this character though. I decided to look him up, and that's when I found this Reddit post. Sex tourist and a prolific pickup artist? I mean, I know that sex tourism is prevalent in Ukraine, Russia, and other neighboring countries. Men come here for cheap girls, food, drink, to gain advantage of them, solicit sexual favors, maybe to find a housewife and generally behaving however the fuck they want just because they can afford it. It all made sense to me. After all, I've seen such behavior all around Ukraine, and that's why Ben's behavior kind of reminded me of that and seemed pretty familiar. Turns out I was not the only one that had an iffy feeling about this character, but even I did not expect to find such a plethora of nasty and horrible details about Ben and the type of behavior he partook in. Post goes into detail on how they found several accounts on pickup forums and explained how they were tied specifically to Ben Rich, the bald and bankrupt guy, about his rape charge that he and two friends were acquitted of at a trial in Winchester, UK. The case was thrown out during the trial after the victim had apparently become confused which two of three men had raped her, how he ran away from a credit card fraud of £30,000, the details of him learning Russian, studying and teaching in Russia, and going on a sex-fueled sprees and having intercourse with as many women as possible by exploiting different tactics, like befriending the local men and babushkas and earning their adulation and respect by accidentally showing them fake pictures of himself in affluent settings such as sat in a fast car in south of France, knowing that, in his own words, by the following day they will have told all their friends, and more importantly, the young women of the wealthy foreigner who just entered their shithole of a town. How about the time when Ben boasts of forcing a young hitchhiker to give him a blowjob in exchange for $6, on the threat that if she did not comply, he might leave her stranded in the middle of nowhere in some post-USSR country. You can only imagine how scared the girl might have been. Or how about another great story from Ben, where he, as a 40-year-old man, struggled to enter an 18-year-old virgin he had arranged to meet in London, that was, in his words, going to be in some considerable pain at the time. But as he describes, he plowed on regardless and used lube and Viagra. There's more. There's a already deleted 6-minute video on rape, where Ben says that women who were sexually assaulted also share part of the blame.
Having read the articles and seen Western women's actions and behaviours in the country itself, I can say that many, if not most, of the rapes could and should have been avoided. Now, this is blatantly self-evident in many other types of crimes, and we routinely place blame on victims of theft, for example. But with rape, it seems a social no-no. If I walk down a dangerous part of Rio de Janeiro wearing a Rolex on my wrist, few people are going to have sympathy for me when it inevitably gets taken from me by some local thug from the favela. Friends and family would roll their eyes and say, well, what did you expect? However, when a young, pretty Western girl decides to visit a remote beauty spot on a motorcycle with two Indian men she met just an hour earlier and ends up the victim of an assault, I'm not supposed to blame her for her stupidity. This is blatantly absurd and a double standard.
And, well, the list goes on, actually, where the ball is given a tutorial on how to commit credit card fraud and check hiding and use the money for hookers, cocaine, and how he did it himself. Oh, there's another comment by Ben on his Rohypnol game with girls. Kinda reminds me of someone. Definitely the most vile thing, however, is a comparison between a book that he wrote under the pen name Arthur Chichester and his posts on the infamous pickup forums. I will read the first paragraph so you just understand it better, but I warn you, it's pretty fucking disgusting. I walked the streets of the city aimlessly, not knowing where I was going, stumbling as I went on cracked pavements that ran unevenly between apartment buildings. That was from the book. Now from the forum post. I went for a walk in a town today, waving my way between crumbling Soviet apartment blocks and cracked pavements. Okay. A few hours later, I found Katya sheltering from the rain in a shop doorway with her young son near the bus station. It was the book again. On the forum, he says, "It began to drizzle. Sheltering under the trees were two pretty young women. I asked the way to the bus station and they pointed me in the direction. I don't know the age of consent in Belarus, but I guess they were not much above it. Katya and Katya were visiting their relatives in the city. Together we bought tickets and along with a handful of grandmothers boarded and took our seats at the back of the bus." Now from the forum. "I bought tickets from the kiosk and we boarded a green bus with a large gas cylinder on the roof. We sat together at the back of the bus, our legs and shoulders rubbing together as we went round corners. My penis slowly filling with blood as they played with their favorite songs on their phone. It was all pop drivel that I pretended to like. I deliberately didn't ask them their ages, as I was already imagining fucking them both and having them cum swap, and I feared that if they told me, I'd had to abandon the idea. They both had tits and hips, but they had a childishness to them that confused me." I mean, at this point, all the links to all the posts is going to be in the description. If you still have any reservation about this person and his intentions, if they're not put to rest by now, you can follow the links and see for yourself. As I mentioned before, Bald and Bankrupt stopped posting for a while. Maybe the shit finally caught up with him. Honestly, I don't condemn anyone for watching his videos or liking his content, but I've heard about the toxicity within his fan base. Kinda doesn't surprise me. I expect a bunch of legends in the comments below attacking me for this video, but frankly I don't care. I just thought that people deserve to know who Bald and Bankrupt really is and what he stands for.